The Bold Signature. Episode 4 of 5. Bold Signature, War Trials, and the Chisel of Grief. What's up, you magnificent bastards? Welcome back to the Masonic Files, where we skip the dusty rituals and the powdered wig lectures and get straight into the brothers who actually lived the values. Brotherly love, relief, and truth, while building shit that lasts in the real world. This is episode 4 of our 5-part deep dive into Brother John Hancock, the merchant prince who turned a bold signature into a synonym for putting your name on the line. In episode 1, we trace the orphan Ashler from Braintree to Beacon Hill Empire, the inheritance, the flashy lifestyle, and the first Masonic shaping with the square, chisel, and compasses. Episode 2 rode the Liberty Firestorm, smuggling scandal, riot, accusations, and King Hancock mockery, where the compasses and plum kept him upright amid gray zone trade and public backlash. Episode 3 followed the Lexington escape with Paul Revere's ride, the unanimous election as president of the Second Continental Congress, the daily grind of war leadership, and the quiet sting of jealousy when George Washington got the army command he quietly hoped for, all while the Level and Trowel bridged coalitions and the Gavel maintained order. Now we reach the heart of the revolutionary crucible, the July 1776 Declaration of Independence with its oversized, impossible-to-miss signature, continued war leadership amid property losses and empty coffers, the personal parallel of marriage and devastating family tragedies, and the slow chisel of grief and declining health from gout, the painful cost of earlier rich living. We won't skip the human messiness. The theatrical flair in that famous signature documented vanity and ego, the contradictions of a merchant prince funding liberty while his own body betrays him, and the raw pain of losing children while steering a nation. Let's take our time and sit with these pivotal years, because this is where the merchant prince's steel gets truly tested, in the signing chamber on the home front, and in the quiet moments when public duty collides with private heartbreak. The Second Continental Congress drags on through 1775 and into 1776 amid escalating war. British forces burned some of Hancock's properties in retaliation. A price remains on his head alongside Samuel Adams. Yet Hancock presides with characteristic style, writing endless letters, begging states for troops and money, using his personal credit and remaining shipping networks to procure desperately needed supplies despite tightening blockades. Let's think about this for a moment. Freemasons have a reputation for being, if not wealthy, fairly well-heeled. But there's a difference between having a heap of cash in the bank, or a chest of silver in the barn, or whatever those old-timers did, as opposed to commanding resources. Wealth is also measured in the value of what you own and what you own can produce. Brother Hancock has both cash and resources, and he is not afraid to put his money where his mouth was. But personal fortune only goes so far, and one man dipping his hand into his own purse encounters limitations when trying to conjure up fighting men and battleships. Sometimes influence and leadership produce more than money can purchase. July 4th, 1776. Independence is formally declared. The document is adopted. Ingrateful rebels celebrate freedom. Cucked loyalists mourn the coming chaos. A majority of the population shrugged and returned to the grind, unconcerned about trading one authoritarian for another. Based as fuck. The next day, as president, John Hancock is the first to sign the declaration. He does so with a flourish so large and bold that it dominates the top of the sheet, centered and unmistakable. Legend says he remarks something like, "There, King George can read my name without his spectacles," or variations involving John Bull and doubling the reward on his head. While the exact quote is likely later embellishment, the signed copy stayed in America, not sent to the king. The gesture was deliberate and theatrical. If the cause failed, there would be no hiding. Treason with his name front and center. British forces already knew who he was. This left no doubt. The signature turns John Hancock into slang for any bold autograph. Every time someone today asks for your John Hancock on the dotted line, they're echoing a brother who put everything on the line with one stroke of the pen. The moment mixes drama and deadly seriousness. Hancock knows the risk. He later tells friends he wanted the king or the British ministry to see exactly who stood against him. It's flashy, yes, consisted with the King Hancock persona critics mocked, but it's also raw truth in action. No retreat, no anonymity. And thus was put in place one of the most boomer phrases ever to boomer. Seriously. Outside of a Bugs Bunny cartoon, when was the last time anyone younger than your grandfather unironically asked you to put your John Hancock on anything? Hancock continues as president until October 1777, signing the Articles of Confederation and overseeing the war effort's early struggles. The job is grueling. Constant correspondence, mediating egos, holding the fragile coalition together through defeats that make many want to quit. British forces ravage more of his holdings. Yet, he keeps showing up. Personal life runs parallel with real pain and quiet strength. Hancock had married Dorothy, Dolly Quincy in August 1775 in Fairfield, Connecticut during the early chaos. Dolly, lively from a prominent family with ties to the Hancocks through Aunt Lydia, proves a steady partner. She supports him through long absences, manages the Beacon Hill mansion amid dangers, and travels when possible. Their first child, daughter Lydia Henchman Hancock, named after the aunt, is born in Philadelphia in November 1776. She dies in Boston in August 1777 at about 9 or 10 months old, a devastating infant loss common in the era but no less crushing. Then comes son John George Washington Hancock, born in 1778 and named in part after the general his father had quietly hoped to emulate in military command. Clearly, Hancock wasn't that salty about being passed over in favor of Washington. The boy becomes the light of their lives, bright, energetic. But tragedy strikes again in January 1787 when young Johnny, aged 9, falls while skating on a pond near Milton, Massachusetts. He hits his head on the ice and never recovers, dying at home in Boston on January 27th, 1787. It's the kind of death that could happen the same way today, because we still don't have a vaccine for gravity or the sudden stop at the end of a fall. The loss devastates both parents. Hancock, already battling painful gout that increasingly confines him to bed or chair, channels the grief into continued public service, but the wound lingers. Dolly remains a rock, reading to him during flares, managing the household, writing tender correspondence during his Philadelphia years when he calls her his dearest friend. Throughout, the rich living that earned earlier mockery takes its toll. Gout, a crippling inflammatory condition worsened by diet, drink, and the stresses of wealth and war, attacks with growing frequency. Painful swelling in joints leaves him unable to walk or even stand comfortably for long periods. He dictates letters, presides from a chair, and endures with the same stubborn resolve that marked his merchant days. It's a personal failing tied to earlier extravagance, a reminder that the flashy carriages and fine table had costs beyond King Hancock's sneers. Dolly Quincy Hancock emerges as full partner and support, navigating wartime separations and shared grief with quiet strength. George Washington, commanding in the field, maintains a complex relationship with Hancock. Professional respect mixed with the earlier appointment tension and later documented moments of vanity or jealousy from the Massachusetts leader. Samuel Adams continues as ally with stylistic friction. The broader Congress delegates see Hancock's mix of moderate pragmatism and deep pockets, holding things together when defeat loomed. The Masonic tools cut deepest here. The gavel maintains order and discipline in chaotic congressional sessions amid war news that could shatter unity. The compasses bound personal ambition and ego when military glory went elsewhere and when vanity surfaced in the bold signature or lingering resentments. The chisel works relentlessly on the rough edges of grief and physical pain, refining the merchant prince through child losses and gout that could have excused retreat. The plum keeps upright conduct as he risks fortune and life while signing treason, as well as "Go fuck yourself to a king" in giant letters. The trowel spreads relief through personal funding of supplies and the quiet support network that sustains soldiers and families. Brotherly love shows in how he treats allies across factions, even when ego wobbles. He doesn't wear the apron for show in Philadelphia. He lives the obligation in the signing chamber, the supply logistics, and the home where grief strikes hardest. He steps down from the presidency in 1777, returns to Massachusetts, and begins the path toward governorship. But these middle war years forge him. The theatrical truth of the signature, the exhausting leadership, the personal chisel of losing Lydia, and later Johnny. The body breaking from earlier indulgences. Let it sink in for a second because this chapter reveals the full weight. A merchant prince, already marked by scandal and mockery, signs the declaration with a flourish that screams defiance. Theatrical yet deadly serious, turning his name into eternal shorthand for commitment. He funds the cause when Congress is broke, swallows jealousy over command, then endures infant loss and later the skating tragedy that shatters his family. Gout from rich living cripples him physically even as he keeps grinding. The working tools: gavel for order under pressure, compasses bounding ego, chisel refining grief into resolve, plum for upright stands when retreat would have been easier. Turn inherited empire and personal ambition into something that outlasts pain and loss. So next time you put your name on something that matters or face grief and physical limits while still showing up for others, remember Hancock in these war years. He applied the chisel to turn heartbreak and bodily betrayal into continued service, the compasses to keep vanity from derailing the cause, and raw truth in a signature that left no doubt where he stood. He lived the obligation from the grand signing to the quiet sickroom. One bold flourish, one dictated letter through pain, one act of steady support amid loss at a time. This has been episode 4 of the Masonic Files on Brother John Hancock. The Bold Signature series, Bold Signature, War Trials, and the Chisel of Grief. Episode 5 will cover the return to Massachusetts, the first governorship, the brutal test of Shays' Rebellion with its mix of firmness and mercy, the pivotal role in Constitution ratification despite crippling gout, the final years, death, massive funeral, and the lasting legacy of a brother who lived the tools when the body failed and the stakes were highest. Hit subscribe. Share this with your lodge brothers, your history buffs, or anyone carrying heavy loads while life's chisel keeps working on them. I'll catch you in episode 5, the final square. Stay square. Stay savage. Stay Masonic.